In the 1850s, John Henry Hopkins Jr. wrote a song, and we still hear all the time this time of year. We three kings of Orient are. Scholars attack and attempt to pick this apart, not even knowing that Scripture does not even agree with them. You will read commentary after commentary on this, and we will show you practically all of them are wrong. How can we be so confident? Because they leave Scripture and go off into conjecture land inappropriately. And all they had to do was search the Scriptures. For David prophesied of this coming moment, and he leaves absolutely nothing to chance, but tells us exactly where the wise men came from. He tells us whether they are kings, and most scholars seem oblivious. And he tells us specifically and exactly from where they originated. And it does not lead to occult Satanists called Chaldean Magi magicians, nor occult Babylon the Great. And oh yes, they most certainly were titled kings, you'll see. We all know the story, or do we? The wise men. No, Matthew does not number them. That's correct. He doesn't specify where they came from. That's correct. But David does. And we've all missed this all these years, or at least in the past 100 years, when these things began to be redefined by the new Dark Ages, obscuring the most significant land of all time. A star appears in the east sky as a sign to the righteous priests who are looking for the coming Messiah. You will hear these are astrologers, but that is unbiblical and not even in the definition of Magi, which are simply Oriental astronomers, not astrologers. Big difference. Astrology is a religion. This is a doctrine never found in all of Scripture, in fact. How do we know this? Well, David tells us these Oriental astronomers saw the star in the east sky because they were from the east. See, when it says it appears in the east sky, it means they were in the east and it appeared in their sky. Simple. Don't worry, that proves out very specifically. It took them 2 years to make it to the Son of God, where they came with offerings. The same offerings that the Queen of Sheba brought from the same land in the days of the temple. They've missed David's prophecy all along. The Queen of Sheba and Solomon's navy bring the same exact gifts to the temple project to be placed next to his presence because it mattered to him. 2nd Esdras even tells us this gold of Ophir will be the very gold used to pave the streets of New Jerusalem. This is a resource that matters to Yahuwah, period, from the beginning all the way to eternity, as does this land. But we do not have to just take some scholar's word for it, or some guy who wrote a couple of songs. No, let's see what Scripture says. In Psalm 72, David, the father of King Solomon, prophesies of his coming son. Of Solomon? No. Of Messiah. Now, the Catholic Bible moves to place a veil on this in understanding, so we can see where this likely originated in false interpretation. By placing in parentheses in their Bible before this passage of Solomon. That's blatantly false. See, David's coming son in this narrative can only be the Messiah himself. No one else can possibly fulfill this because this son shall save souls. Then it says, he shall redeem the souls. Solomon could not and did not do that, period. There is no debating this. Messiah did and does. Later, when David tells us prayer will be made for this son continually, That's Solomon? No. No one's been praying for Solomon for 3,000 years. This is Messiah. And daily he shall be praised. That's not Solomon. Ludicrous. Solomon's own kingdom was already dividing even in his own days because he was not always a good king. Also it says, all nations shall bow down before him. All nations shall serve him. Now Zionism tries to say that Solomon fits that. It never, ever fits Solomon. Solomon, according to Scripture, only ruled the kings of Arabia. They're the only ones that brought him tribute, period. And that is the Middle East. No one else. Never all, even no nations in his day. Only Messiah will receive that honor. And to give that to any other man is unbiblical. Now let's stick to the Bible, shall we? Now for the great revelation of this passage. And this is amazing. It's been right there in Scripture all these thousands of years, obscured by stupid scholarship, putting of Solomon before there, which is just grossly negligent, really. David starts off by identifying these kings. Yes, they are kings. Sorry, scholars. You can stop writing your articles now because you're wrong. They are kings, indeed. There is no arguing with David on that, because David is the expert, and this is his prophecy. And there is no one today who can overcome his prophecy. He says, the kings of Tarshish, Philippines, and of the isles, Ophir, Philippines, shall bring presents. The kings of Sheba and Seba, Philippines, shall offer gifts. Wow! So this tells us the three kings came from the Philippines. And yes, they were more than three. 3 is not the accurate number. That's correct. In fact, this passage is identifying at least 6, maybe even 8, or even more kings. It doesn't say, but there's at least that many listed here, because kings is at least 2, and it says kings at least 3 times. But why 3? Where would that have come from in context? Well, even David is identifying the 3 ancient territories here in the Philippines: Ophir, Sheba, and Tarshish. 3. Seba is part of Sheba, as it means territory of Sheba, as one of its definitions even. So actually, there is precedence for 3 main kings, 3 main territories. Though again, it is at least 6 kings in number. But maybe, just maybe, the writer of this song was not so crazy. It's no wonder the longest celebration of Messiah's birth on all of earth still takes place in the Philippines, in which they have this emblem they use of a giant star, the parol. Sure, it's the wrong time of year, and really the wrong holiday, and the wrong name, and really the wrong concept to match the Bible, but this appears to be an ancient precedence which has survived. This star changed directions at least 3 different times during their journey, and then it stood over the head and stopped above Messiah. It led the wise kings to Bethlehem from the Philippines. This is why it took 2 years. The 3 kings were at least 6, but 3 stand out indeed, and an appropriate application even. Ophir, Sheba, and Tarshish, all now known to be the modern Philippines. And we now know David in Psalm 72 specifically identifies that land and nowhere else, and certainly not occult Babylon the Great, the home of the great harlot. No, thank you. This land had a connection to the Messiah before the Catholic Church even existed. Think about what this means. That's right. The Philippines has been since the beginning his, in relationship with him. This land was already in relationship with the Messiah. May we all restore the truth, and then we shall all be set free